Photoshop on the iPad. Photoshop on the iPad. Common question here now. How you can use Photoshop on your iPad? If you have any iPad, how can you use the Photoshop on your iPad? You can now use Photoshop on your iPad and create anything and anytime and anywhere. When you are inspired to create something new, like Photoshop on the iPad allows you to open and edit large Photoshop files and create stunning composites and retouch your images and apply effects while on the go. And with Photoshop on the iPad, you can untether yourself from your desktop and resume work seamlessly across devices with power of Photoshop Cloud documents. And to begin creating with Photoshop on the iPad today by subscribing to a Creative Cloud plan that includes Photoshop, already have an active plan that includes Photoshop, and you have to sign in with your Adobe ID on your iPad and download Photoshop for the iPad today. So the question here now, which iPad do you need to download and use Photoshop? Which iPad you will need to download and use the Photoshop on your iPad? Okay, so which iPad type? To use Photoshop on the iPad, you can see now the list of supported iPad models updated to iPad operating system, iPad OS, like this screenshot. We have iPad operating system version, iPad OS 13.1. We have many types of iPad. iPad number 1, iPad OS 13.1. iPad models, we have many models here now, like iPad Pro 12.9 inch, and you have iPad Pro 11 inch, and iPad Pro 10.5 inch, and iPad Pro 9.7 inch, and iPad 7th generation, and iPad 6th generation, and iPad 5th generation, and iPad mini 5th generation, and iPad mini 4, and iPad Air 3RD generation, and iPad Air 2, and Apple Pencil models like Apple Pencil 2D generation and Apple Pencil 1 first generation. Okay, that's great. So what language are supported in Photoshop on the iPad? Which languages are supported in Photoshop on the iPad? We have actually many languages will be supported on your iPad. On supported devices, Photoshop is available in the following language now. We have Dutch and English and France language. And do not be careful here. In Photoshop on your iPad, you may be able to use unsupported languages by selecting a native font. However, the functionality will be limited and your experience may vary, and Adobe is working to provide support for additional languages in the future releases. So which Adobe plans include Photoshop? Which Adobe plans include Photoshop on the iPad? Which Adobe plans include Adobe Photoshop on the iPad? If you have an Adobe Creative Cloud plan that already includes Photoshop, you can simply download Photoshop on the iPad for a limited time without purchasing another plan, and simply you can sign in with your Adobe ID. And if you don't have a plan that includes Photoshop for a limited time, you can purchase the Creative Cloud Photography plan that includes Photoshop on the iPad and Photoshop Desktop and Lightroom Classic and Spark and Portfolio. Simply sign in with your Adobe ID to purchase the Creative Cloud Photography plan. That's fine. And if you don't have any Adobe ID, it's free by the way and easy to create one, and then click here to quickly create your Adobe ID. And is Photoshop on the iPad available in my country? Is a question here now. The Photoshop will be available. Photoshop on the iPad will be available in your country. By the way, Photoshop on the iPad is available only in countries where Creative Cloud services are available, and Adobe Creative Cloud services are currently not available on Adobe.com in mainland China, and as a result, Photoshop on the iPad is not available in this region. And how does Photoshop on the desktop work with Photoshop on the iPad? How does Photoshop on the desktop work with Photoshop on the iPad? Any document, by the way, any document you create with Photoshop on the iPad is automatically saved as a cloud document, and so that you can easily access your creative work from iPad to desktop, and cloud documents are automatically sent across devices to create a seamless workflow. For example, if you want to resume your desktop work on the iPad, simply save your PSD as a cloud document. To view your cloud documents, simply navigate to the Cloud Documents tab on the home screen. And how you can to turn off autosave in the Cloud Documents? How you can to turn off autosave in Cloud Documents? Can you turn off autosave in your Cloud Documents? We can to see now. A cloud document, by the way, a cloud document is always automatically saved to the cloud. This is what helps you work seamlessly on your creative projects anytime and anywhere and across your devices. And also, cloud document autosave doesn't turn off, and you can restrict something over your cellular network when working on the iPad, on an iPad. And how much cloud storage does Photoshop on the iPad provide? And can you upgrade your storage? How much cloud storage does Photoshop on your iPad provide? And can you upgrade your storage? Is a question here. Your cloud, by the way, your cloud storage is shared across your Adobe Creative Cloud applications, and the amount of your cloud storage is determined by your Adobe Creative Cloud subscription plan. Like this plan now. We have the plan in applications purchase via Apple Application Store. The storage will be 100 gigabytes. If you purchase from Apple Store, the storage will be 100 gigabytes for any Apple purchase. Any application purchase from Apple Store will be the storage 100 gigabytes, and for free trial 2 gigabytes, and for Creative Cloud Photography plan 20 gigabytes for existing subscribers, and new subscribers who purchase this plan by 31 January 2020 will be 20 gigabytes. This is the plan and storage. And for Creative Cloud Photography plan will be 1 terabyte. The Creative Cloud Photography plan will be 1 terabyte. And for Photoshop single applications will be 100 gigabyte. And for Creative Cloud all applications will be 100 gigabyte also. And if your cloud storage goes over your quota, your documents can be saved as a local document only. And if you need more cloud storage, easily upgrade your subscription plan to include additional storage at any time. So what happens to your assets if you close or delete my Adobe Photoshop? What happens to your assets if you close or delete your Adobe account? What will be happened if you delete your Adobe account? Okay. If you close or delete your Adobe account, or if your subscriptions expires, your assets remain in the cloud and available to download for 30 days, by the way. And after 30 days, you may lose access to some or all of your documents that are saved on the cloud servers. So next question, What are the keyboards? What are the keyboard and touch shortcuts for Photoshop on the iPad? What are the keyboard and touch shortcuts for Photoshop on the iPad? To view a list of popular keyboard shortcuts in Photoshop on the iPad, see keyboard shortcuts now. And next question: how do you suggest a feature or report an issue with Photoshop on the iPad? How do you suggest a feature or report an issue with Photoshop on the iPad? By the way, Adobe actively listens to our large community of users, and we value your input and make it easy to report issues or request new features for Photoshop on the iPad. To report a problem, suggest a feature, and or take a survey and navigate to application setting, then general, then help, then press send feedback. And to ask a question and be a part of community discussions on Adobe form for Photoshop, navigate to application setting, then general, then help, then community forum. And to join a discussion or post to the community, you have to go to Adobe support. Get to know the workspace. As you launch Photoshop on the iPad, you can view the home screen of the applications, and from the home screen you can start creating your composites or documents and proceed to the editing workspace. And in the workspace you can find your favorite Photoshop tools and panels and other options that will equip you to create composites and retouch your creative work. And more Photoshop tools and features are coming to your iPad in future releases, by the way.